Luca, exactly 2 years ago, when you started as president, you launched the audacious appeal for the renaissance, for the reunascence of Europe, and immediately said culture must be at the heart of it. Luca, do you still believe in that? Can we still achieve it?
Agnieszka, thank you so much for your passion, energy, and positive investment in all these issues. You are the force de la nature, as I defined you in Berlin 1 year ago. And thank you to Europa Nostra, Europeana for this meeting today. And absolutely many compliments for your statement, as I already wrote to you by mail this morning. I fully subscribe. Your statement is quite important today. The second one, everything has already been said by Sabine, so I have to stop here what I have to say, because I can subscribe word by word, even the word rinascimento she has evoked. Yes, it's true, 2 years ago, I launched my presidency in April 2018 with this nice word. It's a combination of Renaissance and EU, Renaissance. And the subtitle was Dare a Sustainable Europe. And I've been, I think, the first institution and the first president of such an institution to put under this slogan 3 pillars. One was sustainable agenda, the second was peace, and the third was and is culture. I think no other institution, no other president never put in such a clear way this. And I think I am still convinced today that not only has already been said by many before me, Europe has been a cultural space before becoming a market and before becoming a political project and a political idea. And it is still a cultural space based on the incredible force of our diversity that met and built something together. And we need culture. We needed culture 2 years ago. We need culture today, because we are not only to invent a new paradigm of our development. Will be based on this new balance between economic, social, and sustainability and environmental. But for doing this, we need a narrative. And the narrative is created by culture, is generated by culture. And so, if you want really to go to a renaissance, sorry to say, I am a lover of Americans, but I do not like the New Deal. I prefer a European term. So I would call this Renaissance. I am more than happy that yesterday, the President Charles Michel opening the State of the Union in Florence by virtual, of course, he has proposed officially to call the recovery plan for Europe as not Plan Marshall, again American, but Plan de Gasperi for Renaissance. So I am more than happy and this idea is taken. I hope that we call more and more using this fantastic term that, yes, of course, has been generated in Florence, in Tuscany, but after has become really an enormous force of change, cultural, spiritual, economic, and political in Europe, in the passage between the Middle Age and the modern Europe, and we need today a new Renaissance. I was convinced 2 years ago, I am more convinced today. The second reflection I want to put has already been raised. We are not only naive about values, about idea, about spirit, but also about the concrete content. I live in a city, Torino. Everyone knows the history of Torino. Torino was the capital of Fiat, was the capital of industrial revolution in Italy, has been the core of this dark, gray, metallurgical fabric of our economy. When in the 80s, in the middle of the 80s, 80% of the revenue of the people living and working in Torino surrounding was based on hard industry. Today, 80% of the revenue of the people living and working in Torino is based on culture, tourism, and conference. So culture is also an enormous economic driver, as Stefan has told, as also other. We know that in Europe, culture represents today, although the data are not so defined, 4.2% of the GDP, mobilized today 8.4 million of workers, represent 1.1 million of enterprise occupied in all this sector of culture. And in some countries, as mine, Italy represents the 16% of all the industrial sector in culture in Europe, but Germany has a lower number of enterprise, but has the highest added value in the sector of culture. So we This is also an economic force. And of course, has already been raised, this has been a sector largely affected by the crisis, perhaps more than others, because we know that most of the people working in the cultural sector are independent, are precarious, so they lost everything. They continue to do their work completely on a voluntary basis with absolutely, completely loss of income. And the experience told by Herman before about the museum in Berlin is the same as being represented to me by the director of the Royal Museum in Torino, Enrica Pagella. She told me we're completely closed. We have lost a lot of revenue for the project we had. So we have to see also this economic driver for our society. It was clear yesterday, has to be more clear today. But last but not least, I think there is also another reflection. I'm very happy that Sabine has already raised this, and also some others, because these 2 months is only 2 months, but these 2 months has changed radically our life. And there is one aspect that has been completely lost and forgotten by the womb that has managed this crisis. I haven't seen a psychologist in any urgency team established by our head of state and government. And if you listen to the psychology, they said the impact on the psychology of people, elderly, family, children locked down without contact with a similar for months, without capacity to be together, close, and also physically close. So people now are feared. They are feared to infect others or to be infected. We are keeping social distancing, but we need hugs. We need direct relation. We have been locked down. We have lost most of our liberties. We are now again divided by borders, not only between countries, but even between regions in our countries. We are anxious. We are completely lost in what will happen. If you have to travel through Europe or through Italy, we don't know what are the rules. We are obliged to know a lot of norms. We went back in the Middle Ages of the several capital and village states, each one was establishing its rules. And this creates an enormous anxiety and the lack of trust and distract the social fabric. So we urgent need to rebuild the spirit, not only the economy. We urgent need to rebuild this social cohesion. We urgent need to feed a spirit of daring, to dream. We urgent need to reconstruct trust, a new sense of belonging, a new sense of being part of the same community, a new sense of care, a new sense of compassion, but also a new emotional intelligence to mobilize the energy. And now a new sense of fraternity to accompany this new normality. It's true, we are entering in a new normality, and it will stand for some long time, not only for a few weeks or few months. So I think they conclude, and I was also very shocked, I have to say, very emotional this morning, early morning, when I read integrally the speech of the president of Germany, Steinmeier. I was really emotional. It's a strong speech, one of the strongest I read in the last month, and I strongly advise everyone to read. And this idea of broken hearts is really very strong. Culture has an enormous untapped potential today more than ever to become, today even more than yesterday, a unifying and mobilizing force to relaunch, reconstruct, and regenerate, a word of your manifesto, our social fabric after the pandemic. That has to be a priority. So fully support to the Commission Maria Gabriel for a statement, fully support to the Croatian presidency, also the very good statement that I have read, fully support with the Parliament, fully partnership with the Commission of the region, and fully support for all the real actors of this fight and challenge. And you are the real forefront of this fight. But we need this more than ever. We cannot live without a soul. We are not only living by bread, but we need also the spirit. And culture is what makes us alive.